When I'm talking with people about moving to Vancouver, the one question that I get all the time is what areas should I avoid? Overall, Vancouver is a very safe city to live in, but if you want to see for yourself what the worst neighborhoods in Vancouver look like, then stick around because I'm getting into it right now. Welcome back, guys. I'm Rick Anderson, and this is the Southwest Washington Living Channel, where I go over everything about moving to and living in Southwest Washington. And as always, if you're thinking about moving here to Southwest Washington or anywhere in the Pacific Northwest, and you're looking for that perfect place to call home, go ahead, reach out. You know how to get a hold of me. My information's down below. That's the only way that I can help you with making the move here to the area. And don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and tap that little notification bell so you know the next time I drop a new video. Alright, we're going to get going with our first neighborhood here in just a second, but before we do, I just want to put it out there. This video is not about me dogging on the people that live in these neighborhoods. The majority of the people that live there are good, honest, hardworking people that just want to go, live their lives, raise their families, stuff like that. Unfortunately, it's a small percentage of people that can take a perfectly good neighborhood of good, decent folks and just turn it into a place where nobody wants to live, where people avoid at all costs. So I just want to put it out there before, people get their feathers all ruffled that, I'm dogging on the people that live here. That's not what this is about. So with that said, let's go ahead and get right into it. So our first neighborhood on the list is Fruit Valley. Fruit Valley used to be a primarily agricultural area with orchards and farms, which is how they came up with the name. It stayed like this until World War II, when the government built thousands of homes all across Vancouver. They built them to house the workers at the local shipyards that were building ships to support the war effort. To this day, Fruit Valley still has the highest number of those World War II era houses still standing, which to me is pretty cool. Now, Fruit Valley is primarily industrial with manufacturing, some agriculture, and a small amount of single and multifamily residential that's mixed in there. A lot of that is also, a significant number is government subsidized housing. Like a lot of older neighborhoods, as time goes on, the neighborhood dynamic changes. Some owners stop taking care of their homes and they lose that pride of ownership. More businesses come into the area that make it a much less desirable place to live in. Schools start to suffer, crime increases, and the next thing you know, your neighborhood's on some random list of places to avoid, and some jerk on YouTube's talking trash about where you live. Unfortunately, Fruit Valley's seen all of that. Now, as we go through the area, you might be thinking, this doesn't look so bad. And you're right. Over the years, we've seen more people rehabbing these lower income neighborhoods, so it's not uncommon to see several nice looking rehabbed houses that sit next to or across the street from one that really just needs to be torn down. Unfortunately, Fruit Valley makes its way onto this list with 119% more crime than the city average and 1,038 violent crimes per 100,000 people. Now we're going to move over to the Bagley Downs neighborhood. Bagley Downs sits in the heart of Vancouver, midway between I-5 and 205, and it's bordered by SR 500 to the north and Fourth Plain Boulevard to the south. It's another neighborhood that sprouted up during the World War II housing boom here in Vancouver, and now it's a mix of older and some newer single and multifamily residential homes and apartments, with some commercial businesses on the south side of the neighborhood along Fourth Plain Boulevard. So, despite being home to the Vancouver Police Department's West Precinct and community resources like the Jim Parsley Center, Bagley Downs sees approximately 124% more crime than the city average, with 1,064 violent crimes per 100,000 people. For a while, as a little kid, I went to one of the schools in this neighborhood, and I remember that it wasn't unusual to see windows in the lunchroom boarded up because somebody broke into the school, or, maybe see graffiti on the playground equipment, stuff like that. It is, unfortunately, there is a lot of gang activity in this area. But overall, one thing to keep in mind is that even though these numbers might seem outrageous, the majority of crime that we see in Vancouver is nonviolent or property crime. Whether it's home or vehicle break-ins, drugs, vandalism, things like that, overall, Vancouver really still is a very safe city to live in. Now we're going to move on to the Central Park neighborhood. This is one of the oldest neighborhoods in Vancouver, and it sits just north of Fort Vancouver and Officers Row. Some of the early housing in the area used to be reserved for officers and enlisted personnel from Fort Vancouver who were authorized to live off post. The neighborhood is also home to Clark College, Hudson's Bay High School, the Marshall Community Center, the VA, the Washington State School for the Blind, and the Old City Cemetery, which is one of the oldest in Washington State, and is the burial place for many of Vancouver's pioneering families. So, since the neighborhood's bordered by I-5 on the west, and it's less than a mile to the I-5 bridge into Oregon, we are seeing an increased number of homeless people in this area. And as we come down Fort Vancouver Way here, you can see there's a bunch of older motorhomes parked along the road. That's a very common sign with homeless camps here in the Pacific Northwest. What you can't see is, as you get closer over to I-5, there's a homeless camp right next to the freeway on-ramp. So you can see the motorhomes there as you head down the road. So a lot of the neighborhood decay came from property owners that just let their properties deteriorate while they were waiting to purchase adjoining parcels and eventually demolish the homes and build multifamily housing. But due to rezoning back in 2000, which kept a significant amount of the single family zoning in the area, what we're starting to see is more renovation of existing properties. And as you can see here, a lot of the houses in the neighborhood, they look pretty nice, pretty decent. They're updated. So the namesake of the neighborhood, Central Park, has also seen a pretty significant downhill slide over the years. As a kid, I remember going there with my grandparents and even going there on a field trip with my school. Unfortunately, now the park is known for drug and gang activity, people being harassed by panhandlers and the homeless. And there's also a skate park connected to the Central Park. You do see, people out there skating using that, but not a whole lot else. When it comes to comparing Vancouver to some of the other local cities that you might be thinking about moving to, here's some numbers to think about. Now, these are coming from the Uniform Crime Reporting, so this isn't just me making stuff up. So, Vancouver compared to Tacoma, Tacoma has a 56% higher crime rate with a 333% higher homicide rate. When you compare Vancouver with Seattle, Seattle has a 35% higher crime rate compared to Vancouver. Now, that's also not taking into account the amount of unrest that we saw over, the last couple years with riots and protests, stuff like that, and everything that went on, especially up in Seattle. When you look at our next door neighbor, Portland has a 29% higher crime rate and a 167% higher murder rate. So in 2021, Portland actually closed out the year with 90 homicides compared to Vancouver's like 2 or 3. Now, granted, Portland is a bigger city than Vancouver, but you can kind of compare that and see whether or not you want to roll the dice, living over across the river. A good rule of thumb when it comes to looking for places here in the Vancouver, Southwest Washington area is the further north you go up I-5, the safer of neighborhoods you're going to find. As well as the further east you go over towards like East Vancouver, Camas, Washougal, again, further east you go, the safer neighborhoods you're going to find. So here's an older graphic from the Vancouver Police Department. Now this is about 10 or so years old, so the numbers aren't 100% correct, but it still gives you a good idea of what I'm talking about there with the further north and east you go, the safer neighborhoods you're going to find. All right, that's going to do it for me. I appreciate you guys checking out today's video. Do me a favor, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and tap that notification bell. And as always, if you're thinking about moving to Vancouver or anywhere here in Southwest Washington or the Pacific Northwest, don't be afraid. Reach out to me anytime. You know how to get a hold of me. My information's down below. I'm here to help you with making the move to Southwest Washington. And until next time, bye everybody.